A lot of the stuff that we have is like cohort studies, right? So if you look at the evidence hierarchy, everyone always wants a randomized control trial.
Double-blind placebo.
Oh, it's got to be everything. And because that's the hierarchy is designed to reduce bias. So as you descend down that hierarchy, bias starts to increase. And with a RCT, which is what we love in medicine too, we want to see what the specific effects of a single drug are, and we control everything else. And that's pretty clear then, right? That's it. But then we take these cohort studies and we look at 50,000 people. We can follow them prospectively or retrospectively. So we can look at them and say, okay, well, let's have a look back in time and see what they were eating and what they were doing. Or we can say, all right, we're going to follow them from now and we'll just continue to follow them. Following them from a prospective is typically, obviously, thought of as a higher level of evidence, right? But there's so many confounders in that. There's a lot of confounders in it, and it is hard, right? So this whole thing of correlation doesn't imply causation. It doesn't mean causation.
Yeah.
And this is what they'll say, but they can over apply that rule, and to the point where correlation does imply causation, right? So, and we've seen that with the tobacco industry. But these people, they over-apply that rule and go, nah, I'm just not going to accept any of that data. So here's my goalpost. I'm just going to shift them right back here so you can't even kick that goal, right? And it's a classic phenomenon called shifting the goalpost. They'll just literally move the goalpost to a point where you cannot even kick a goal. And so if you go back and you look at the epidemiological data for smoking, the tobacco industry actually said, so we can either say that A correlates with B, so A causes B, or B causes A, or we could think that potentially there's some other thing, C, that can cause A and B. They'll always choose that it's C causing A or B, you know. If you look at the tobacco industry, what they did was they essentially said, and they had this campaign going to say that it's not that smoking causes cancer, it's that cancer causes smoking, because you're stressed and anxious and you want to smoke to relieve anxiety. That was one of their big campaigns. It's insane. Look, you look at all the data on it. That's how they did it. So it's a classic way of just, I guess, misrepresenting the truth. And unfortunately, as I said before, like one epidemiology study doesn't really mean much on its own merits. But when we have just consistent, reproducible studies that start to show an effect, and then we can look at a dose response curve, right? So then we start to say, okay, well, if we've got this little trend here, let's look at dose response. So let's say we'll substitute people who, let's just say smokers, we can have a look at if they're smoking 20 versus 40 cigarettes, and we can say, oh, look, there's a difference there. So then the trends, it all starts to support the evidence, right? And we start to see more trends. We're doing that with meat and our diet now. We're starting to say, okay, well, if you exchange a certain percentage of your diet with whole food plant-based, it reduces your risk of cancer, reduces your risk of diabetes, reduces risk of this. So now we're starting to see this evidence. It all adds up and it all means something, but they'll just write it off as nothing.